Trying to silence liberty. That's how libertarians are describing big tech's crackdown on so-called hate speech. That Twitter, because of that, they say they've suspended several libertarian accounts, including Ron Paul Institute Director Daniel McAdams. So is this a deliberate effort to silence them? Here now is Dr. Ron Paul, former Texas congressman and host of the Ron Paul Liberty Report. Dr. Paul, good to have you here. We have heard that Mr. McAdams' Twitter account is back on. Now, we have tried to contact Twitter. They have not returned our calls. Have they made any attempt to either apologize or explain their actions to you or Mr. McAdams?
Not to me, but I think when he was put back on, there was some type of an apology about it, but I don't remember the wording. But it was associated with a form of an apology, and that they put him back on.
Well, do you think it was a mistake, or do you think it was a deliberate effort to silence you guys?
I think probably both. They're deliberately attacking many libertarian, conservative constitutionalists, and that is common practice. But then again, I think they do make mistakes. They overshoot because Daniel McAdams hadn't even tweeted anything. He promoted something. Somebody else said something, and all he did was retweet it. And so I guess his guilt level was lower, and they decided, and it might be that maybe public pressure still helps, because we did get some attention on the websites, and people like you and others talk about, could they be targeting constitutionalists and libertarians? And I do think that helps. I think it was maybe helpful for maybe Facebook reassessing their tools and their techniques on how to pick and choose who gets to be promoted on their website.
There are all these algorithms, you know this very well, that kind of alert organizations like Twitter or Facebook or whatever to what they call hate speech. But I can't think of anything in the libertarian jargon that would do that. Can you?
No, matter of fact, and I know you understand the message because it's built on nonviolence, non-aggression,
right.
and many times we cite Martin Luther King because he was a peaceful person that defended his position. But
and for those who don't know, for those who aren't familiar with it, conservatives very often chide you libertarians as being too soft on things like defense. So if anything, as you say, it would be more peaceful message than most conservative websites. But it does lead one to question whether an entire generation that is now dependent on social media is being kind of led by the nose by editorialists at Twitter or at Facebook who don't believe in what you espouse, that is a strong support of the free market and a condemnation of socialism.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is a real challenge to us, and I've talked about it on my program, is first off, do they have a right to do this? And we would argue they're private. They do have a right, and they monitor. And my webpage, I can keep people off if they're being ugly and nasty and all these kind of things. But the question is, are they getting any support from the government? And that is where I come down on the side that, yes, they do. They accommodate the government. They provide information to the government. They get money indirectly when it was developed. They get advertisement from the government. Now, Facebook has just decided that they use Atlantic Council people to help them sort this out and find out who should be censored and who should be not. Look into Atlantic Council. It's a big government organization, and guess who donates a lot of money to it? It's Facebook. So that's a facade. They're not really, what they're doing is hiding. Facebook said, if somebody disagrees, we'll just send them to the inspectors that we're hiring to sort this out for
censors.
No,
some people call them inspectors. Yeah. You and I would call them censors. I'm short on time, but I got to ask, do you think the rise of people like Ocasio-Cortez and other socialists within the Democratic Party, particularly their appeal to millennials, are because of the fact that you have these editors or censors, if you will, working for social media sites?
I think partially is the case, but I'm not going to give the socialists too much credibility. Yeah, there was an election won, but when we do some talking to young people, I find out that a lot of people don't buy into that. Yeah. So sometimes the polling, when you really get to the young people, they sort of like this idea of peace and prosperity, something we advertise for.
That ain't bad. Yeah.
People. What I always say is young people at the age of 18 don't all of a sudden get up and want want big government, more taxes,
Right.
poverty, and we need another war. That
Yeah.
young people don't volunteer and march forward. So I think the appeal, ideas have consequences. They're very, very powerful. It is said that they can't be stopped by armies. So I still go by, no matter how powerful the media and the social networks are, if you have a good idea and it's right, I believe we can win the fight.
Love your optimistic attitude. Dr. Paul, always a pleasure to see you, sir. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.